A question to start. What kind of organisation do you work in? Does it feel like this? Does your IT shop feel like this, where you're a coffee shop with order takers, where you've got people lining up to put their order in? You've got some other people here who are waiting, obviously given their order and waiting. You've also got some people who have just got tired of waiting and gone outside. Maybe they've gone to find another coffee shop around the corner. And in the IT space, we call that shadow IT. That's how it pops up. Are you an order-taking organisation, or are you an organisation aligned more like mission control to do great things, where you have this amazing goal? And sure, there are challenges along the way, but you're aligned and you know the goal and you know your part to play in achieving that goal. And I think about these two things a lot. We go in our roles in AA, we go into a lot of different organisations. We see a lot of coffee shops. Don't see so many mission control organisations. And it kind of leads me to think that what if the way we think about our projects, the way we think about our work, what if it's flawed? What if there's too much of us trying to act like a coffee shop and be order takers, and not enough organisational alignment and trying to do great things, trying to put people on the moon, trying to put rovers onto Mars and all of that kind of thing. And then I look around in the marketplace, and what you're seeing coming out of McKinsey and Deloitte is a lot of this organisational transformations being underway. You can see it in this country with a couple of companies who are undertaking Agile. It took me ages to draw that logo, by the way. A lot of organisations who are going through these Agile transformations. Deloitte and McKinsey, again, 90% of senior execs want to be Agile. And perhaps they don't even know what it means, but that's what they're saying they want to be. So we're seeing in the market, there's a scramble to be Agile. Everyone wants to do it. Everyone's talking about it. If you look in the Herald, I spent a lot of time in Auckland. In the Herald, there's a lot of talk about what Spark are doing. And a disclaimer while I'm here, by the way, we are involved in the Spark Agile transformation, not me myself. So anything I say about Spark is public knowledge. It's as a third party, essentially. If you want to hear more, you can talk to Kane, my colleague. You'll see us in the T-shirts. So what does it look like in that organisation then? Well, we kind of see that I'm too far away, right, when I walk over there. Agile, but not as we know it. That's how I see when you're looking to scale this Agile across an organisation. It's not about doing what we do with the team, which a lot of us in this room will know that. It's slightly different. So those of us who've worked in the Agile organisation kind of understand what Agile means. It's an adjective. And when we talk about Agile in a team sense or in an IT group, we don't mean this. We don't mean the ability to change your mind anytime you like and do something completely different and go, hey, we're being Agile. I cringe every time I hear that. We mean this. Relating to or denoting a method of project management. Short division of tasks, short phases of work, frequent reassessment and adaptation of plans. That's what Agile is to us at a team level. If I was to categorise that, if you remember one thing from this presentation, remember these three things. Managing complexity. It's a complex world. It's a complex technical environment that we work in. So to combat that, we frequently deliver things of value so that we ensure we're building the right thing. And I find in organisations, this middle bit is interesting, where we tend to think that the way to de-risk a project is to do more planning or more requirements. Whereas in our world, in the Agile world, the way to de-risk it is to get something into the hands of customers so that you can ensure you're building the right thing. So that's Agile at a team level. How does it feel at a business level? And business agility is the term that we use. You want to go back? I'll just go back for this guy.
Thanks, mate.
You guys just talk amongst yourselves. So, business agility, what does it mean? I love these slides, by the way, because I'm going to leave you guys alone to read them. Short answer, ability for an organisation to sense changes and respond accordingly. So it's the business that's sensing changes to deliver value to its customers. So customers are important. Okay, I'm getting a picture here. It's not a specific methodology or general framework. So it's not about Scrum, not about Kanban, not about any of that stuff, but more about the mindset. We're trying to scale the mindset rather than scale Scrum. take it across the organisation. I think that's the bit that people don't always get when we talk about Agile across an organisation. They kind of think, well, are your execs running Scrum? Are they having daily stand-up? Are they forced to have sprint planning and having a retrospective on a Friday afternoon? That's not what we're talking about. We're trying to take the mindset and scale it up. So if you remember those three things from the previous slide, you might want to remember these three things as well. So when we talk about Agile transformation across an organisation, these are the three things we talk about. Getting closer to the customer. So understanding your customer intimately, understanding the things that they need. Placing small bets into the market. And by the way, when I drew this, I kind of thought, that's quite a big bet. I'd never make a bet that big at the casino. So that we can get feedback on what's working. Cue phones. So we've gone from managing complexity, delivering value so we know we're building the right thing, to getting closer to the customer, placing small bets into the market so we can get feedback on what's working. That fundamentally is how we think about business agility. So as I said, we're not talking about scaling. We're taking the mindset and scaling that. Those of you who are familiar with Joshua Koryevsky's modern Agile concept, that's how we think about it. And we'll come back to that. I will reference that later on. So what is the Agile mindset? What is the mindset that we're looking to scale? Thinky Monkey, the smartest employee at OO. We see him turning up on our slides all of the time. What is the Agile mindset? Focusing on helping the team succeed so the team become the thing. The thing that's all important, getting people to work together. Positive attitude, we've already seen that there's complexity in our work. Things always go wrong, there's always challenges. How we respond to those challenges become really important. Do we down tools and go, well, it's not my job to fix that, or do we try and help provide input into how to solve problems? And there's a couple of other things on top of that. Willingness to experiment, willingness to try something, and inside that willingness to experiment is the willingness to fail. But in failing, we're also learning a hell of a lot. So trying to learn becomes really important, as well as understanding the value of what we're doing. Value becomes a really important word. Value to who? Our customers. Understanding what's valuable to them becomes really important. So that's the mindset that we're looking to scale up. So what changes then? What do you need to change if you want to go Agile across the organisation? What are the things that we need to think about? How does it work at somewhere like Spark? Somewhere like Vodafone? What kind of things are they thinking about? What are we seeing? First up, their focus changes. From being a company focus to being customer focused. Everything revolves around the customer. No longer are you Acme Corporation who make widgets. You are focused on who your customers are and finding out more information from your customers. And so if your focus changes, it stands to reason that your structure should change as well. From having separate siloed departments, marketing, infrastructure, customer support, sales, to having them focused around things customers care about. So your definition of what a product is changes. I worked with an organisation recently who one of their products was delight the customer. So it's not anything tangible. They were an organisation where customers would get some information, customers would choose to sign up with them, and then they would work with them on a subscription basis for a period of time, and then at some point they might off-board. So their product was delight the customer all the way along that journey, make it easy for them to do business. Delight the customer the whole way along that journey, as opposed to being a sign-up team. This is our acquisitions team. And then there's customer support, and there's nobody in the maintenance team, and there's nobody in the off-boarding team. So the way you view your products needs to change. And in doing so, you gain alignment. You build cross-functional teams. So you may have someone from your marketing team. You may have someone from your legal team. You may have developers. You may have testers. You may have a graphic designer. You may have someone from your customer support in your team. All based around something that customers care about. And then customer journey maps become a really important way of getting started. Understanding the journeys that your customers go through. So far we've gone from the focus of the organisation changing to the structure of the organisation changing. So immediately we can see that there's some fundamental changes that are going on. And these aren't small changes, right? And so the next step from there is your planning changes. Rather than 3 to 5 year cycles, you're potentially going to quarterly cycles or even smaller, where you're talking about 3 to 5 year cycles or even annual plans. You're talking about placing small bets. So the way you finance your projects, the way you budget your projects should change. Think more about seed capital or investment capital. I'm constantly amazed in organisations where it seems easier to get $5 million for a project than it is to get $100,000 to try something. That's staggering to me. That just seems wrong. And so that $100,000 thinking is what we're talking about when an organisation goes agile. And if you're doing smaller things, placing smaller bets, then you've got the opportunity to have a conversation about, do we pivot? How's it going? Do we pivot or do we persevere with what we're doing? So then the conversations, the meetings become very different. And you can listen to the language. Do we do this? Do we keep doing this thing or do we do something else? That's the team who's got the autonomy to do that. And so what we talk about at OO is needle movers. What are the things you want to change? What are the percentages you want to increase or decrease? Is it things like percentage of customer acquisition or percentage of processes automated or a decreased percentage in number of phone calls to the call centre? Thinking about those things and then allowing the team to work out how to change those things. So think needle movers, really good concept. And so once you've gone from your structure changing and your planning changing, obviously the things above that need to change as well. Management needs to change. We heard Harold Hillman at lunchtime, just after lunch. That was really good. Talking about the way leadership needs to change. Talking about how we need to be vulnerable. So we're going from hierarchical management structures where we're trying to act with certainty and the dreaded command and control and micromanagement, which I find if you ask anybody, no one acts in a command and control way and no one micromanages. That's all things that other people do. But it's really interesting going to organisations from the outside. We can kind of pick that stuff straight away. So you've got your leadership structures change, and Harold talked about that really well this morning, about being vulnerable. I've got a friend who was at CodeMania. It's going back 2 or 3 months now, the tech conference in this country, and he did the retreat afterwards. They have like 40 open sessions. You can talk about whatever you like. One of them was a technical session. The other 39 were all about people and diversity and leadership and being vulnerable, bringing your whole self to work, and also, you'd hope, taking your whole self home from work. So the leadership changes to driving some of this change, being part of this change, managing that change or leading that change, rather than telling people what to do. You're giving them you're setting goals, getting out of the way to allowing them to do the work. Servant leadership, to use a term from Scrum, the Scrum Master role. That's exactly what we're talking about, influencing rather than directly telling people what to do. Psychological safety is the term that's there that came out of Google's Project Aristotle, and I won't talk about that, otherwise we'll be here for another 2 hours. I can talk about Project Aristotle for a couple of hours. But that's where Google looked at what's common amongst their high-performing teams. What are the things that are common? If they can bottle that, then they increase the chances of every team being high-performing. You can go and have a look at that. And so once your leadership changes, some of the other stuff needs to change. If the team's the important thing, then why have individual KPIs? We see it all the time in organisations. We encourage the wrong behaviour by having individual KPIs. So we in the Agile transformation across an organisation, we're looking for goal-driven teams. What are the goals that this team wants to achieve, and how can we help them get there and then reward them accordingly? The other thing that happens for teams in transformation across the organisation is they also look after the what and the how. It's contrary to how we think about something like Scrum, where you've got the product owner role who looks after the what and the team own the how. Here, the wider team have the ability to control the what as well. These are the needles we want to move. How are we going to move them? So HR sits underneath this, right? HR moves from being about disciplinary action. I know I'm just stereotyping what HR does, but it moves to being about growth and enabling the fun stuff, I guess. The fun stuff in this agile world. So it stands to reason, if you're changing your performance, also the people need to change. Maybe you're looking for different people, going from rewarding experience and having this concept where that's the way we've always done it around here. Or the person who's got the most knowledge, they're the leader of the team, to actually moving towards diversity. A lot of talk at the moment around diversity in teams, and sometimes that requires unlearning. We find when teams are white, male, Development teams, they get blind spots. So we come in and we talk about the soft skills that you need. You actually need to unlearn some behaviours. And this is as a white middle-aged male, I'm talking about us. And while I'm talking about us white middle-aged males, if you haven't watched Nanette on Netflix, you should go home and watch it tonight. So what do you get? You do all these things where you put the customer at the centre of everything that you do. You put some teams structured around things the customer cares about. You get feedback, so you work out what's working and what's not. You put some leadership structures around those. You reward your teams appropriately and accordingly. You create diversity in your teams, and ideally you also create diversity in your leadership teams. What do you get? What are the things that will happen to your organisation? Well, for a start, you'll get some alignment. It'll start to feel like mission control once you get this alignment. You'll get a problem-solving culture, and which is good because this process will reveal your dysfunction. And then you've got a choice. Do you want to deal with it or not? I know what I'd rather do. It's hard, but you've got to deal with it. You also get a focus on continuous improvement. You would hope that by continually trying to get better, it becomes part of your culture. And I've deliberately not said the word culture so far, because culture is what you get out of your actions every day, the things you do and say every day. So this is kind of the culture you'll get if you're doing these other things right. And as a byproduct, you'll also get happier staff. People who are more involved in the outcome. Get decisions, they can make decisions within the outcome. So what changes again? I started by asking what changes. In short, everything. If you want to go agile across the organisation, everything changes. Therefore, if you're not prepared for everything to change, don't try and go agile across the organisation. Let me put it another way. Can't be clearer than that. Everything's going to change, you've got to be prepared for it. And so, Joe, it sounds hard. Yeah, it is hard. It's not easy. This stuff ain't easy. You're fundamentally changing everything in your business. Surely some bits are easy. Easy-ish is how I'd describe them. The frameworks, there's a lot of literature around Scrum, around Kanban, around the techniques. Journey mapping and impact mapping are just two we like. There's plenty others. That's the easy bits. Getting started is also easy. It's one of the things I liked about watching the Spark transformation. In June, I think it was, they had their Agile Day, their Flip Day, where all of a sudden a whole bunch of people went from not working in an Agile way to working in an Agile way. And from the outside, I could see that they weren't ready. And they knew they weren't ready, but they got more value out of getting started than not getting started. They could have done another year's planning, but they decided we're going to learn more from getting into this than we'd learn in another year's planning. So they did it. So that when we talk about Agile, we talk about the doing Agile stuff. This is doing Agile. That's the easiest bits. And then the hardest bits is about being Agile. This is when we start to scale up the mindset. You start to get, changing people is really hard. Really hard to change people, especially working in an organisation where people have worked the same way for 20 years. And where they've got to is because of the way that they've worked. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard. Dealing with organisational dysfunction. As I said, it will reveal a lot of dysfunction in your organisation. You've got to be ready to deal with it. And that is hard. That can be really hard. Organisational design, getting the organisational design right. Restructuring is hard. But let's not pretend that we're going to get it right first time. That also needs to be agile and needs to be able to change. Getting the right people on the bus. In Christchurch, we're not exactly overwhelmed with really good people. We've got a lot of great people, but they're also those people are already working. It's not like there's a glut in the market of developers or great testers. I look around the room and I know some people who put their hand up and say, we can help with that. Maintaining momentum is hard. Once you get into your transformation, you're 3-6 months in, it's still ongoing. You need to think about things like setting up a transformation group, making sure that it's sustainable. First 3 months are fun because things are changing, blah, 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 and then it can get hard. So you've got to sustain it. The hardest thing I find is that bottom point. There's no right way. There's no one way, despite what some of the top 4 consultancies might tell you. There is not one right way. You've got to feel your way. You've got to get started. And so, as the closest I can find to a framework or something to think about is Joshua Koryevsky's modern Agile concept, where you've got 4 things to think about. Make your people awesome, whether it's your internal people, your customers. Deliver value continuously. It's that value word coming back again. Delivering things. Experimenting and learning rapidly. So learning becomes really important, and making safety a prerequisite. That's not just technical safety, it's people safety as well. Making it safe to challenge. Making it safe to question when something doesn't feel right. Making it safe to have a voice. All of that stuff becomes really important. I'd recommend you go and look at Modern Agile. And of course, another thing that helps, we're biased, but getting outside help can help. We find that it's valuable having a voice from outside who isn't embedded in the work, who's not in the weeds of the work, and can provide an impartial voice, I guess. And by no means are 00 the only people in town who can do this. And so as I close, my question to you guys is yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. But what if working in this kind of organisation we can achieve great things? We can have great fun. We can do things that we never thought were possible. And this is NASA when the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. Just a good example, I guess, of what an aligned organisation which is working in a mission control kind of way can achieve and how it feels. And by God, do I want to work in an organisation like this?
You, Jeff, is good. Touchdown confirmed. Receive.
The audio cuts out. It's okay. And so, just the level of high fives as a white guy, that gives me hope. The level of white guy high fives in there. And so my question to you guys as you leave is, when you go back to work tomorrow, think about what kind of organisation you're working in and what you want it to be. Is it a shop where you're taking orders and people are waiting for orders, or people are getting tired of waiting for orders, or you're under pressure, or is it an organisation where you're aligned in a mission control way and you're set up to achieve great things that perhaps when you turned up here at 4:30 you didn't even know was imaginable. Thanks very much.
That's pretty awesome, thanks, Joe. And actually there's a long list of questions here, so I feel like you might be needing to have a chat over a beer later, but I'll try and ask a few of them. I'm going to roll 2 of them together. How do you deal with... they jumped, sorry, all right, I'll start off with this one. How do you deal with customers who don't want to be agile? Agile requires an agile customer.
Yeah, it does. You talk to them, I guess, about what their challenges are. What are the problems? Or you might do some interviews, customer interviews. Just go and talk to them. It shouldn't matter. So I don't know whether they're talking about an actual customer or a vendor kind of situation. But if they're an actual customer, go and talk to them. Go and find them in their natural environment, in their natural habitat, and just observe them. I'm staggered. I was in an organisation last week where they've got a UX designer who has never talked to a customer. Well, I said, you're not a UX designer, then are you? You're an X designer. Good crowd, by the way.
Yeah. Cool. This is what I was going to roll into at one, but you talked about kind of these great ideas. If you're a SME or a startup, how can you embed some of these principles?
It's easier. It's good. You're a smaller organisation. You don't get bogged down in bureaucracy. I find a lot of it depends on the founders or the owners, what their mindset is like. They drive a lot of this change. But if they want to be this type of organisation, it's actually a little bit simpler. You don't have the barriers. I hope that answers that.
All right, so that leads into the next question.
Perfect.
How do you get the founder or owner on board?
Sorry. talk to them. I do a lot of conversations at AA. Again, you've got to have that conversation about what kind of organisation they want to be. Who do they want to be? I do a lot of team charter stuff with teams and also senior execs, and a lot of it is around that. Who do you want to be? What kind of organisation do you want us to be? And that will tell you whether it's an organisation that you want to be part of. Do you want to be on board? Are we aligned? It's trying to get that alignment.
Cool. You talked about having the right people on the bus. Can you comment on getting people off the bus?
Yeah, it's easy. This is a personal view. In this country, we've got this thing called the Employment Contracts Act. It's not impossible if you've got the wrong people on the bus to get them off. I see it in organisations where they've got the wrong people and they choose not to get them off the bus, and it has a really detrimental effect. You talk to any HR consultant, it is possible, and even when they're the one with all the technical knowledge, I see it all the time. That person can't leave because they got all the technical knowledge, and then 2 years later they leave and the team just swarms, and within 2 or 3 months their impact is nullified. You don't even notice that they've gone. And I think at times we're too scared and we hide behind the Employment Contracts Act. I don't know why I'm talking about this. We hide behind the Employment Contracts Act as a crutch to go, we can't get rid of them because of this, but actually they're hurting your company. You've got to get the wrong people off the bus.
Cool. Right, we've got one more question. Do you have any suggestions for how to succeed in a multidisciplinary Agile environment?
Good question. Stalling. Sorry, what was the question again?
Do you have any suggestions for how to succeed in a multidisciplinary Agile environment?
Yep. Diversity is really important. Soft skills become really important, and techniques, believe it or not, like disc profiles, understanding each other, using a disc profile as a way to start a conversation about what's unique about me, what parts of a CD? What parts of a CD are me, which bits aren't me? Journey lines, all kinds of techniques. You've got to come together, do some team building in that diverse environment. But the team building needs to be around how you work together and how you get to know each other. So when we do team building, we don't talk about going out on an assault course. We don't do trust falls. We don't go to the pub anymore. We talk about how we work together, and part of that is understanding each other. Shark diving. Maybe back next year, may not.
Alrighty, that's all for this session. So one more time, say thanks to Joe.